Hello and welcome to part 1 of episode 3 of The Whole Tooth, a podcast all about sharks brought to you by the Save Our Seas Foundation and me, your host, Dr. Ayla Hodgson. Every episode I pitch your questions about sharks and their underwater habitat to a panel of marine experts and conservationists from all over the world. Now, usually we take a deep dive into one specific question, but this week I have a treat for all of you shark nerds out there because we are answering not one, but 7 questions. And all of these questions relate to sharks at extremes. So we'll be finding out about the largest sharks in the world, the smallest, the longest living, the fastest, and taking a deep dive into the deep sea where we'll meet some sharks that, yes, glow in the dark. Now, for a bumper episode jam-packed with shark facts, I needed some very special guests. And today we are incredibly lucky to have Jaida Elcock, Amani Webber-Schultz, and Meghan Holst joining me on the podcast. I honestly cannot think of 3 better people to nerd out with about some of our weirdest and most wonderful shark species, because not only are they incredible scientists studying different aspects of shark ecology, physiology and conservation, but they are also queens of science communication. So you've probably come across Jaida on TikTok, where she's famous for her hilarious animal facts videos. And also Amani and Meghan co-host the Sharkpedia podcast, where they break down science with legendary shark researchers. And not only that, but they are also advocates for diversity and equality in the marine sciences. And they do some incredibly important work with their individual organisations. So Amani and Jaida are 2 of the 4 founding members of Minorities in Shark Sciences. And Meghan is co-founder of Minorities in Aquarium and Zoo Sciences. As always, there will be links to everything in the show notes. So please go and check out the work that they do. I was so excited to have these ladies on the podcast and chat about their different roles, as well as, of course, the strange and fascinating world of sharks. It was such a fun episode that we ended up talking for quite a while, so we've decided to split this episode into a part 1 and a part 2. So this episode will talk about the largest, smallest and fastest sharks in the world and find out all about Amani, Meghan and Jaida's research. And you'll have to stay tuned next week to find out more about our amazing guests, as well as sharks in the deep sea and whether sharks are poisonous. But today we've got a lot of ground to cover, so grab your snorkels and let's dive in. Hi guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
So excited to be here.
So happy to be here.
No, thank you for being here. And I'm just super excited to kind of nerd out about sharks with you all. But before we kind of get into our question, I sort of wanted to talk about you. So can you just very quickly explain to our listeners where in the world you are today? So Meghan, if we can start with you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm in San Francisco, California. So I'm right on the west coast of the United States on the Pacific Ocean, which is great. My field site is not too far from me.
Awesome. And Jaida?
I am in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. I am on the opposite end of the country. And my field station is also very close to me. Honestly, I just got to get out in the boat and go and hopefully find some sharks. But yeah, very much looking forward to the field work I'm going to be doing this summer.
And Amani?
I am located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so all the way across from Meghan and like right below Jaida. And my field work currently has been in Florida, so I do not get to just go outside and go see the sharks like Meghan and Jaida do. I get to get on a plane and fly down to Florida.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty sweet deal having your fieldwork site like right on your doorstep. For sure. Yeah, and I think one thing this has taught me already is just how tiny Scotland is, which is where I live. So you can literally be across the country in about 5 hours.
Oh my gosh. It's like not even the size of one of our states.
I was going to say, like, I can do that with Arizona, like go from the top to the bottom, like in like 6 hours or something like that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's craziness.
Wow, wait, I'm shook. That's because So Meghan is in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is where I grew up. And if you drive 5 hours like north or south and even really to the east, you're still in California.
Yeah.
By like another, depending where, like 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah, it's a really long state.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, but we typically like to start the podcast with what I've learned is a really, really difficult question, which is, what is your most memorable experience in the ocean? And every time I ask this to one of the guests, they kind of look at me in absolute fear at having to pick one of their favorite experiences. But yeah, if you guys could tell me, what is your most memorable experience in the ocean?
Okay, I'm gonna go with my first ocean memory, which was when I was, I believe, 3 or 4. We went to Ecuador and the Galapagos Islands, and we like did a whole bunch of stuff while we were there. I have memories of like seeing the tortoises and running from the tortoises because they were as tall as me, and like that striked actual fear in me. I was like, the tortoise is gonna eat me. And this is something that I still remember at the age of 23, so obviously it was traumatizing. We were on a boat, and I had this little tiny like fishing boat, because I think like we took a larger like ferry, and then you get on a smaller boat to go to one of the islands. And I had a purple like baseball hat on, and it flew off of my head into the water. And the memory that I have is not it flying off of my head, but looking down and like watching the hat sink, and then seeing all these like crazy vibrant colored fish, like so like the brightest orange ever, and blue and pink, and like all of this amazing color, and just like not even remembering that my hat was in the ocean, but just like looking at all of these fish underneath like the amazingly blue waves that we were seeing. And then next thing I know, this guy took his fishing rod and fished my hat out. He like somehow dropped the fishing rod and let the hook go all the way down and hooked my hat like mid water column and pulled it back up. And then I had like a wet hat for the day.
What?
But that's like, I know.
Never heard
it's like
this story.
This is amazing.
Isn't that crazy? And that's like my first ocean memory. And it's like so like I was so young, and I still remember like every little bit and piece of it. If I was a good artist, I could probably draw like what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that just jumped out to me there. The first one is how incredible that you went to those places at the age of 3 and 4. Like,
yeah,
mine must have been blown. And secondly, what a roller coaster of emotions. So first of all, you lose your hat, very sad, but then you see all these amazing fish, and like mine's just blown at these like this incredible environment that you've never seen before, and then all of a sudden guy rescues your hat
with a rod and reel.
Oh my goodness, what a hero.
Yeah.
Jaida, how about you? What was your most memorable experience in the ocean?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I grew up in landlocked states. I grew up in Illinois, which was many, many hours from a coastline. And then I moved to Arizona when I was 10, which is still very many miles from a coastline. At least in Illinois, we had like Lake Michigan. Arizona is just the middle of the desert. So I like had nothing. I think my first experience with the ocean, I was probably, if I had to guess, like 12 or 13. So I was older. But I think probably my favorite experience was I was 16, and my family and I went on vacation to California with a bunch of our family friends. We rented this house like on the beach, and the only reason we could afford to do so, because it was very expensive, because California, was because we had like 5 families with us. We all just kind of crammed into this one little house, but it was great. And I remember I was going out and I was like boogie boarding with my brothers and then my dad's friend, and it was so much fun. And I felt an animal touch my foot, and I like freaked out, only because I couldn't see what was below me. So I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if it was a stingray or if it was a shark or if it was just a fish, if it was seaweed, but I was like, it feels slimy. So I thought it was a stingray. I was like, guys, I felt an animal. I don't know what it was, but I felt something. And my brothers were like, no, it's just seaweed. You're overreacting. You're just paranoid. And then like 2 seconds later, it goes past Danny, my dad's friend, goes past Danny's foot, and he goes, oh no, I felt it. That was definitely an animal. And I was like, I was right. Aha. And then it was fine. And we just kept boogie boarding for a while, and it was a great time, but it was so much fun to just like be in the ocean. And then when we were walking back to shore, super shallow, I think my brother saw like a baby guitar fish. I didn't see it, which I'm so angry that I didn't see it. I'm always the person that's like in the car that someone's like, oh, look, a deer. And I'm like, where is it? And then we're already past it. And I never end up seeing it. So of course it would happen to me in the ocean too. But like, I was like, wow, I was so close to a guitar fish. And then it was really cool because later I interned at Odyssey Aquarium in Scottsdale, Arizona, and they had 3 guitar fish. And I got to teach them how to eat from a target. And so I got to have that experience and finally come all the way around. And I was like, I got to see guitar fish. It was so much fun.
You also taught them how to eat from a target, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, there's a few things that I want to touch on in that story. But first of all, can you tell us how you go about training a guitar fish to eat from a target?
Yeah, so basically you make a target that's, waterproof. Obviously, you don't want it to be like cardboard or something, but then you just kind of dunk it in the water. And at the beginning, they're like, I don't know what this is. So the closer they come to it, if they come within like whatever your distance is that you determined, I said like 2 feet, then you reward them with food. And they're like, oh, awesome. Okay. And so slowly over time, they start to associate it with food. And then by the end of it, as soon as you put it in the water, they make like a beeline right for it. And they're like, that means food. So I'm going to go over there. And none of the other animals react to it because you haven't been rewarding them. So that was really cool. And it was super useful because they were really small and they were in a touch pool at the time. And then they were like 1.5 feet long when I worked with them, but they're supposed to get to like 8 to 10 feet long, something like that. So obviously they had to move out of the touch pool. And teaching them to like target feed made it so that we didn't have to like chase them around the exhibit trying to like feed them. And it made it easier for when they started stretcher training them, which is helpful for being able to like transport them to different exhibits and helpful for like vet checkups and things like that. So it was like kind of the first step of like acclimating them into life on exhibit, which was really cool. And like they're huge now. They're like 5 or 6 feet long. And I'm like, I feel like such a proud fish mom.
And then Meghan, the question to you, what is your most memorable experience in the ocean?
Yeah, it's really hard to pick one. And as I'm listening to Amani and Jaida, I'm just like, oh man, that makes me think of other similar experiences that I've had. I was super fortunate to like grow up on a freshwater lake. And then I moved to the Puget Sound in Washington, where there's just so much wildlife up there and it's so accessible. So I'm really lucky. But I think the most memorable experience actually has to do with something that Amani asked me about recently, which was the first time you saw your first animal that you're working on for your research. And that has to be the most gratifying, memorable experience I have ever had, because I, framed this research question and I had a whole team out on the water that's like there to help me answer this question. And I felt the pressure of that, like putting all these people out there and the work and the time that it took to get us all agreed on this research question and everything like that. And then we were getting skunked for a while. Like we weren't seeing sevengill sharks, which is what I study. We weren't seeing them yet because the adults only come in seasonally and we were looking for adults at the time. And I was really nervous about it. And I was like, what if they don't come in? Or, of course they will, but we're not really sure what's going on with the population. So I was super, super nervous about it in general. And then when I finally found the first one and we had it up on our vessel and we got the samples that we needed and we were able to tag it, like that has to be the most memorable experience I've ever had. I remember every single person that was on that boat with me and exactly where we were and, how that whole process went. And we only got one that day, but that's literally all that matters. And that's all it took to get that research started. And that has to be like the most gratifying, rewarding experience I've ever had.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that sounds incredible. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like sort of, we kind of mentioned it earlier on a completely different topic, but sort of that feeling of you're so like pent up and obviously worried and you've got a lot of stress because you really want this to go well. And then when it actually does, like that feeling is just so incredible. But then we do have a purpose of this podcast as well, which is to answer some questions about weird and wonderful shark species. So we do get these questions a lot through the Save Our Seas Foundation. And, you know, a lot of people want to know about sharks at extremes. So that is exactly what we're going to talk about just now. So we're going to go through a couple of these different questions. So the first one that we have to answer is, what is the fastest shark in the world?
It is the short fin mako is the fastest shark. There's also a long fin mako, but the short fin is faster. They can reach bursts of speed up to 45 miles per hour, which is crazy to think about. I'm like, that's the speed limit in most like roads in the US. So the fact that that's how fast they can swim is mind-blowing to me. And also they're just gorgeous animals. They look so sleek. They look like torpedoes, which is just perfect for like streamlining the water along their bodies so they can just go as fast as possible. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. I love them.
I was like, I just realized her background's a thresher shark, and I was like, oh, is that a mako behind her?
Nope, it is a thresher.
The tail is a dead giveaway.
I know, I just wasn't paying attention. Jaida coming in with her animal facts.
I got you.
Yeah, I actually read an article earlier that called them toothy torpedoes, which I really loved.
That's the only way I'm referring to them from now on. They get no other name.
Toothy torpedoes.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent. But yeah, so why do they need to be so fast?
Well, I mean, they hunt things like tuna, which are fast, very fast. So if you're chasing the fastest fish species that are out there, you also have to be one of the fastest. So I'm just looking at like the adaptations that they have to be as fast as they are. They don't reach as fast as some of their prey items, which I guess makes sense. Otherwise their prey items might just be kind of out of luck. But I mean, they've got like a keel on their tail to help reduce drag, and they have some degree of endothermy, which helps their muscles kind of like stay at like optimal levels so they can fire as fast as possible. Like they're just, oh my gosh, they're incredible animals.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. There's actually been studies done on their skin, right? So shark skin is actually believed to be modified teeth. So their skin, the scales that they have enamel over them, just like our teeth do. They don't experience drag in the way that other marine species and even people do. So this definitely helps them be able to move quickly through the water and make sharp turns, and then not use as much energy as another species might. Like a great white, for example, they're not known for like large bursts of speed that can last a decent amount of time. They're known for short bursts of speed when they need it to eat. And so having sort of, you know, morphological adaptations similar to what Jaida also mentioned about their tail, it only helps them in the lifestyle that they have where they eat tuna, which are extremely fast fish.
I read somewhere that they actually designed some swimwear for humans that is actually based on shark teeth to help people be more hydrodynamic, which is really cool.
Yeah, and then they banned it.
Oh, they banned it?
It's actually banned in a lot of high school competitions, like high school swimming competitions. I can't speak to any sort of higher level swimming. But yeah, they banned it because it actually can give you a large advantage while you're swimming, depending on the suit that you're wearing.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's
I
so
actually just
cool.
learned that the other day because I was speaking with a reporter who was like, yeah, I actually had one, and then they banned them in our competitions because it was like too advantageous to people.
Goodness, I didn't. Oh my god, they're super effective. Yeah, I might write that down on my shopping list actually to get a shark tooth design hydrodynamic swimsuit. I imagine they're incredibly expensive, and I probably can't afford one, but
Never mind.
But yeah, so moving on from the fastest shark in the world, our next question is, what is the largest shark in the world? And I think this species of shark is probably a lot of people's favorite species of shark, actually.
Jaida is shaking.
Yeah.
They're so cute. Do you want me to say it? Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. The largest species would be the whale shark. Fun fact, the second largest is the basking shark, but the whale shark is
Better shark.
What, the whale shark is the better shark?
No, the basking shark is the better shark.
I agree with that.
Oh, thank you so much for
I
saying
will
that.
third that.
I mean, they breach, they jump their gigantic bodies out of the water. Whale sharks don't do that.
Yeah.
The whale sharks are cool. They're filter feeders, which seems Like, it doesn't make sense, but like the largest animals on the planet are filter feeders, and that's just the way the world works. And it will never make sense to me, but yeah. Whale sharks are cool because they have like this polka dot pattern, which is as unique as a human fingerprint for each individual. So if you get a good enough picture of them, like, you can identify the specific individual, which I think is really cool. And they do active filter feeding, which means that they suck water in and just collect whatever's in the water, whereas basking sharks do passive filter feeding, and they just open their mouths and swim around and hope for the best. And
the coolest fact.
Oh, sorry, what?
You're almost forgetting the coolest fact, which I think probably Amani is also gonna say.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say, Amani, I think you should share the coolest fact.
Yeah.
Oh, about whale sharks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is exciting.
Okay. This paper came out this year. It's insane. Whale sharks have their, like, so shark skin, the term for shark skin is dermal denticles. Super nerdy word. Doesn't even sound like English. And whale sharks have that on their eyeballs, and it's super weird. They have it basically like surrounding the inner part of their eye. And it's really freaking weird, and it's like a new thing, so no one really knows like why this is. But also, like, good thing they don't have eyelids, because that would really hurt if you had to blink and you've also got like teeth on your eyeballs.
Yeah, I was gonna say not pleasant.
Yeah,
like,
so like, they don't
armor.
have the like nictitating membrane that other species of sharks, like great whites, for example, have, where there's this membrane that goes up over their eyes. When there's something near their eyes, it's just to protect them. You can see them do this like when they're going for prey. A lot of times they'll cover their eyes right before they go after the prey. And whale sharks do not have this. So in theory, the denticles and or teeth on their eyes could be for things like protection from parasites. It could be for things like protection from any sort of other fish that might get near their eyes. We really don't know like why they evolved to have teeth on their eyeballs, but it's really cool.
It is really cool and so weird, and that's why I love sharks. Just because everything's so weird. But I'm so happy as well that you mentioned the basking shark, which is also the second largest species of shark. I mean, I never talk about the basking shark on this podcast, but yeah. But I was on another podcast talking about the basking shark, and to me, the basking shark is kind of like the first model really of the whale shark. So the whale shark's kind of got like a few updates. So like Jaida mentioned, the basking shark is a passive filter feeder, whereas the whale shark can actually suck water in. And I do think the basking shark as well has like a slightly more prehistoric shape, where the whale shark looks like it was just like designed better to do what it's meant to do. Yeah.
Whale shark is the Tesla model, and basking shark is a Toyota Corolla ?
Oh my god, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, exactly, which is kind of why I love them so much. Okay, so I wanted to take a little commercial break, if you like, from the shark nerding, and ask you guys about your research, because each of you are about to either embark on a PhD, or Meghan, you've just started your PhD, and then I wanted to ask you guys kind of what your research is focusing on, because this is exactly why I invited you guys onto the podcast. Not only because you're all fantastic science communicators and you are amazing at talking about sharks in a way that's fun and engaging, but also because you do study them as well. So I wanted to ask you guys a little bit about what your research questions actually are.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so for my PhD, I don't have a specific species or anything just yet, but I have a lot of questions about movement ecology and habitat use in elasmobranchs, and more specifically sharks. So I think like I'm really interested in, so you know how like you're walking down the street and you pass a stranger and you're like, where are they going today? Are they going to go spend some time with a friend? Are they going to go pick up their kids? Do they need to go grocery shopping? What store are they going to go to? How are they going to get to the store? This is the way that I think about animals as well, which, I mean, for better or for worse, I kind of just anthropomorphize them probably more than I should. But it kind of helps me think of these questions of like, well, how are solitary shark species finding each other for mating purposes? How are different species using oceanographic features like eddies and fronts and currents and things like that to find prey items or to migrate? Or how is migration affecting them? What's up with their energetics? Like, what is all these questions that we don't have answers for? Like Meghan says, like, there's just so many questions that we don't have answers for. And what makes a scientist is really trying to find the answers to those questions. And so I just have all these questions of like, what is your life like? How do you go about your life? How are you finding the things that are going to help you survive? And there's so many different ways that you can answer those questions, but I'm going to be using most likely biologgers. So looking at like magnetometer, accelerometer data, depth, temperature, time series kind of things, and all that kind of stuff you can use to look at like migration and position of the animal in the water column and like pitch and roll and yaw and all kinds of other crazy things. And so those can kind of help answer some questions of like, what kind of behaviors are we seeing? How are they navigating to find X, Y, and Z, and all these crazy questions that are so hard to wrap your head around. But yeah, so I'm very excited. I don't, again, like have a specific dissertation project just yet, but that's in the works. I have some fun ideas that I'm excited for. And so I'm so excited to get started because I know that the pandemic has made things kind of weird, and I feel like I've had kind of like a delayed first year where it feels like, oh, maybe you're not where you should be, but like I feel like everyone feels like that this year, so it's really not that big of a deal. But I'm so excited to kind of get started and start, collecting the data that might help me answer some of these questions.
So Jada's thing is like, where are they going? Like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? And I kind of see them from more of like a morphological perspective. So my PhD, which I haven't started yet, I'm starting in September, is going to look at, like sharks' bodies and why like the way they look or how their skin is or how large their fins are is advantageous to them and how they go about living. So like while Jaida might be like, why is the thresher shark like going over here and going over there? My thing would be like, why is their tail so long? What about having their tail so long makes it so that they can like swim fast, eat prey, things like that? I'm specifically interested in shark skin because shark skin is super cool. And it varies across species and across individuals. And it's what makes them, it's what gives them the ability to move through water so easily and not experience the drag effects that most other marine species and animals do. So I kind of come at sharks and other animals in general with the question of like, what about their body makes it so that they can do the things that they need to do in their life? What about their body makes it so they're not using as much energy as another species would need to as they move through life? And all of those kinds of questions relating to form and function.
So I'm a little bit more similar to Jaida, but my PhD is specializing in conservation ecology. So I'm very interested in where sharks go, but the specific aspect of my PhD is what does the species need to survive and thrive? So I'm looking at sevengill sharks, the broadnose sevengill shark, which is found worldwide. There's a lot of different areas in the world where you can find sevengill sharks. As far as we currently understand, those populations don't seem to cross the ocean and mix, as far as we know. And I believe the population that I'm working on travels from Alaska to Mexico. So that's our population that I'm looking at. And with this population, the only place where we know that they breed is in Willapa Bay, Washington State. And the only place that they pup anymore, where they come and have their babies that we know of, is San Francisco Bay in California. And that also happens to be the only place in the entire world where you can readily find the pups, the juveniles, and the subadults of sevengill sharks all in one single location, and also be able to access the sexually mature adults that come in seasonally, because the females come into the bay to pup out, and the males also come, which is interesting, I find. We don't see mating scars on them in San Francisco Bay as much anymore. They might be breeding here as well, but I haven't necessarily seen evidence of that. So my question is, because we have access to every single age stage of this species, it's a really great location to ask, what does each age stage need to get to the next size class and to survive until they're sexually mature and they can reproduce and participate back into the population? So I'm looking at some basic things. Broadnose sevengill sharks were data deficient until actually this last December. The IUCN Red List just reevaluated them, and they're now classified as vulnerable, which is the class right before extinct. And even when they're data deficient, I'll just be clear that it's not because we don't know anything about them. That's not what data deficient means. It just means that we don't know enough about them to know whether or not they're going to survive over a few generations. So we need more information to know and be able to assess that population. So some of the things that I'm asking is, what does every size class eat? That's a pretty basic question to ask to know what an animal might need to survive. So I'm looking at a lot of different things about what they eat. I'm also hoping to look at where they move, similar to what Jaida is doing. So I'm hoping to look at least specifically the really small juveniles, because they seem to have a very specific niche micro habitat within San Francisco Bay, which nobody has documented. So I'm trying to follow those pups and really document, this is where they are. They seem to need this really critical habitat. We should maybe protect this one area so that they can survive that age stage and get to the next one. The last thing I'm looking at is, can they be safely recreationally fished? And this is something Amani and I talk about quite a bit. People fish sharks, and we can't necessarily criticize that. They're fish just like any other species of fish. And a lot of communities actually rely on shark fishing as part of their income or their food resources, especially in certain parts of the world. That's a really primary source of protein for them. And so there are ways to be able to sustainably fish sharks. And there are current sustainable fisheries for sharks, which I know is very surprising for people. And I think people get kind of surprised to hear that from shark scientists, but it is true. And people fish sevengill sharks in San Francisco Bay. They eat them in the Bay Area. It's a very common fishery. There are charters that go out and fish for sevengills. So I don't want to say and criticize those people because they're relying on it as part of their income. People also, again, eat them. So what's the difference between eating a shark and eating another fish? They're fish. Sharks are fish. So my question is, if we need to potentially protect certain individuals, like the pregnant females that are coming into pup, for example, or those neonate pups, no one wants to eat those anyway, and we should probably protect those animals till they get larger. And so maybe putting like a slot limit or a size limit on what people can eat. But one of the things I want to look at is, can you fish these over and over again? And do they withstand the stress of being fished over and over again? So I'm taking a lot of different blood draws and seeing the physiological stress response to fishing to see how they basically respond to that. And if they can, which I anticipate they probably are withstanding that pretty well, but we need to prove that with science and empirical data. And if they can, then we can say, look, we might need to put a moratorium on this size class. However, you can continue to fish them, just let them go and they'll be fine. And then we can support our local fishers while also protecting the species to persist. So that is a snapshot of a lot of the things that I'm looking at right now that I hope to answer in the next few years.
Awesome. Yeah, I shouldn't have asked. I should never ask this question, because then I always want to go back and do another PhD in something different. Everyone's topic sounds so interesting. So yeah, super excited to see where all your research goes and to read your papers, a couple of years down the line. Okay, so we have talked about the largest species of shark in the world, but I think it makes sense now to talk about the smallest species of shark. So what is the smallest species of shark in the world?
I can take this one because I love these guys. The smallest species of shark is the dwarf lantern shark, which can actually fit in the palm of your hand. It is so small. And one of my favorite things about them is that they have photophores, which emit light, and that helps them actually camouflage so that they look light with the sun, or however much light is coming down, I should say, since they do inhabit deep waters. But I think they're super cute, and I also love that they have photophores.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that there's also the pocket shark is kind of like rivaling the dwarf lantern shark for the smallest shark, because both of them get no larger than like 8 inches long or something like that. So again, can fit in your hand. And they are also bioluminescent, and they have like little pockets behind their pectoral fins, like behind their armpits.
Literal pockets.
Exactly. And it basically, these pockets like spit out bioluminescent goo. So just odd. Yeah, I don't even understand these sharks.
Bioluminescent goo.
Yeah.
It's my favorite scientific term.
Yes.
And firing that out of your armpits as well. That's quite a bold statement.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did read about these animals is that they typically occur in deeper waters. So with the dwarf lantern shark, for example, you're talking about 928 to 1,140 meters, 40 feet deep, and still smaller than your hand, and that is exactly why they need to glow in the dark. So in actual fact, we do have a question later on that asks, do any species of shark glow in the dark? Which actually rhymes, and I didn't realize that. So maybe it makes sense then to talk about those species, as we've already touched on a couple. So I think we've answered the question, do any species glow in the dark? Yes, indeed they do.
Yes, they definitely do. And one of the species that is local to I live right next to the Pacific Ocean, and there is the swell shark. And if you look at a swell shark, they actually also can glow in the dark, which is super, super cool. I think more sharks honestly do it than you might think.
And that's the end of part 1. You'll have to come back next week to listen to part 2. We'll be taking a trip further into the deep sea and finding out why sharks glow in the dark. We'll also be chatting about the longest living species of shark and one species you really wouldn't want to eat. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. You'll be finding out more about Amani, Jaida and Meghan in the next instalment, but for now you can follow Amani on @Kaylee_biologist, @Meg Holst for Meghan, and Jaida on @SoFishtication. That's fish as in the animal. Also, be sure to look at minorities in shark sciences and minorities in aquarium and zoo sciences. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss the next one, and leave us a nice little review on iTunes. This just helps more people to find us. And if you would like a question answered on the podcast, or just want to say hi, please feel free to get in touch by emailing isla@saveourseas.com. A massive thank you to David Knight, who provided our wonderful jingle, and thank you as always to the Save Our Seas Foundation for supporting this podcast. All right, thank you, and we will see you next time.